Hello there, Kirk here, and today we're having a look at Fujifilm's latest compact camera, the X100 Mark VI, or the X100VI, as you may call it. I've had the incredible opportunity over the last couple of weeks to have some hands-on time with the new camera, and I wanted to share some of my first impressions with it, and also discuss what's new with the camera, how I've been using it, what makes me excited about the release, and of course, many of the photos I've captured with it over the last couple of weeks. I'm also quite curious to hear your thoughts on Fujifilm's new camera, so don't hesitate to use the comment section below as a place to discuss everything new about the Fujifilm X100VI. Be sure to subscribe too, as I'll have a lot more content coming out in the next couple of weeks on this camera, including reviews, comparisons, plenty of more photos, and a few photography walks. Now, if this is your first time on my channel, I'm a filmmaker based in Melbourne, Australia, and I've posted dozens of videos on the Fujifilm X100V, taking it all around the world whilst discovering and creating some of my favorite film simulation recipes that I've loved to use with it. Now, I do have the actual camera on me here, so this isn't one of those clickbaity videos, and that's thanks to the CameraPro team, who are kind enough to give me some early access with the Fujifilm X100 Mark VI. If you haven't checked them out, they're an awesome Australian photographic retailer that I've shot from before, and they can help you out with all of your photography and videography needs, and I'll leave all of their details and links in the description below, along with everything else. So beginning with the camera itself, it shares a pretty familiar design as the outgoing X100V, as you'll pretty much have to squint to notice any differences to the major design of the body when having a look around the kit. Some small differences that you'll notice include the grip protruding ever so slightly more, a Bluetooth icon located next to the display button on the back of the camera, and aside from that, the buttons, hardware, joysticks, and everything else on the camera is pretty much identical to the X100V. So when you pick up the camera, the changes are pretty much unnoticeable, including the same 23mm prime focal length that is on the main lens of the camera. So moving on to the big things that are new here, we have a new 40.2 megapixel CMOS 5HR sensor, up from the 26.1 megapixel sensor on the X100V. We also have a new X Processor 5, which enables AI subject detect with autofocus and eye tracking for moving subjects. With that larger sensor as well, we also get recording up to 6.2K in H.265, as well as 4K 30 and 4K 60, which enables you to record in F-Log2. We also get a new inbuilt stabilization system inside of the camera, which you can actually feel when moving around. Fujifilm labeled this as 4.5 stops of stabilization, whatever that's supposed to mean, but it is proving to be really handy when it comes to taking photos for moving subjects and fast moving environments, as well as just doing video too. We've also got a couple of new small features when it comes to connectivity, including being able to connect the camera to the new Fujifilm X app, as well as direct integration with Frame.io, which can be really helpful for wireless tethering on photo shoots. But lastly, one of my favorite new inclusions with the Fujifilm X100VI is the fact that this camera now has 20 film simulations inside of the camera, including the new Reala Ace, which was previously just released alongside the new GFX lineup. So there's more film simulation bases to create your recipes from, built right into the camera. So with all the new goodies out of the way, I wanted to now talk about how I've used the camera over the last couple of weeks and the environments I've put the camera in. Very similarly to how I've used the X100V in the past, I've been using the X100VI in a lot of different scenarios, including urban photography, both inside the city, just outside of the city, at car events, for car photography, nighttime shooting, and just general urban street photography, which I think is what this camera is great for. And most importantly, I've loved using this camera as a dedicated behind the scenes photography camera over the last couple of weeks on different video and photo shoots that I've been at, including on my own short film. Being so small, lightweight, and nimble, in addition to be able to bake in my own look and just shoot JPEG only, is a big reason why this camera shines. The biggest thing I noticed when shooting with this camera is that new 42 megapixel sensor, and it really makes a huge difference. One of the big things that I noticed with my previous X100V is that whenever I was viewing photos outside of my photo screen or on a computer monitor, if I wanted to really zoom in and see the details, at 26 megapixels, although it's actually quite a big sensor and it works great and everything, I did find that when I wanted to zoom in and look at the details of a particular image, it quickly broke down just because there isn't enough resolution there. So with this new 42 megapixel sensor in the X100VI, it has made a huge difference and something that I'm really excited about, and honestly didn't completely realize that I needed it. Having that extra resolution really not only enables me to crop in if I wanted to edit the photos and reframe it, even at nighttime, although the pixels are actually a little bit smaller compared to the predecessor, given that the sensor size is the same at just above APS-C. I've noticed no impact to low light performance with the X100VI, which is definitely a good thing. So all the benefits that I have noticed coming from that extra resolution sensor is a really good thing with no drawbacks from what I can see so far. Now, don't get me wrong, I love using my film simulation recipes that do add a lot of grain baked into the image, but I have to admit, having that extra resolution does still add a lot of clarity underneath that layer, which is great. And also, because this was a pre-release camera, I wasn't actually able to use any of the raw capabilities on the camera, so I really just shot JPEG only. And with that new sensor, there is just so much data in there, in just the JPEGs itself, that I was able to do some pretty substantial edits just with the JPEGs alone. For example, if you have a look at these car photos before and after, where all I did inside of the camera was shoot with the Reala Ace preset, or the film simulation preset that's baked into the camera. That's all I did, put it on auto exposure, and was really just adjusting the aperture however I liked, and the exposure compensation, of course. Everything coming out of the camera looked pretty good to start off with, but there was a lot of latitude if I did want to edit it in the future. With that new sensor, because it has a lot more megapixels and a lot more resolution to play with, it does allow you to play a lot more around with it in terms of digital cropping. Now, you can do that in the edit, but something I did actually like to do was change this focus ring here on the front to map it to different digital cropping methods. So there's 3 stages of cropping. There's one fully wide out at the camera, one that's a little bit closer in, and then one a little bit closer in than that. Now, of course, this does actually crop the digital image that is coming out of the camera, and you're not actually getting any focal changes at all, but that is a nice little feature to have, and I did actually use that a few times. The EVF is still quite helpful, and you can switch it between an optical viewfinder and an electronic viewfinder, although I will still note there is a massive discrepancy between the contrast and color of the actual image inside of the EVF versus what you're actually getting, so that's just one thing to keep in mind. Now, moving over to some of the more interesting features that are coming along with this camera, and that is a new 6.2K video mode coming straight from the X100VI. Now, this is interesting because the camera is really just a photography camera, and I wouldn't necessarily be buying it just for video purposes. There are much better cameras out there for that, but it's actually really nice to have. At 6.2K, it doesn't really rival the quality of my 6K coming from my Blackmagic camera in B-RAW, which the files are huge. You can shoot at 6.2K at 30 FPS in H.265, which already has a LUT built into the camera, or it's just filming at Rec 709. If you do want to shoot at F-Log at 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, you have to bump down to 4K, and I believe that is oversampled 6K going into 4K, which is again nice to have if you did want to do some grading afterwards. But that's one thing to keep in mind. There is no log recording for 6.2K mode, just in 4K at 30 and 60. So now I wanted to share my thoughts after using it over the last couple of weeks, coming from my X100V, which I've really been enjoying using over the last 2 years. If you don't have an X100V or have owned any of the X100 lineup in the past and you've been looking to buy a compact digital camera, I really can't stress enough how much I love the X100 lineup, and the VI is only an upgrade from the previous generation. Now, if you do have an X100V, I don't really recommend just throwing that one out because it's still an incredible camera. You are looking at some subtle changes and differences here that improve the overall experience of the X100 lineup, and I really do love that new sensor being able to have a lot more detail to crop in with, and also just having a little bit of extra resolution is nice to have, with the only drawbacks really just being the extra file size that you have to worry about. I'll also leave some high resolution images in the links in the description below for you to download if you wanted to check those out that came from the X100VI, as well as all of my favorite film simulation recipes. I'll have a full review coming out really soon, but in the meantime, let me know your thoughts. I'm keen to hear what you think in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, stay safe, and of course, do take care.